Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. It's a beautiful day to be outside, but I think it's even going to be better being inside. The chat series is sponsored by The First, a community bank that has grown to serve customers at 16 branches along Maine's coast. And today they are sponsoring a chat by Ted Clapp. Ted is a well-known local resident, a former minister, a competitive fencer, a nonagenarian, I'm not sure I said that word right, and an author, and he has published a new book. Tell Me About the River and Other Stories from the Coast of Maine are drawn in part from Ted's former column in the Lincoln County News, and it speaks about our everyday and very special encounters with life and broader experience in this state. Ted has divided his observations by season, which is perfectly logical to most seasoned Mainers, as our natural environment is so insistent on making itself evident by wind, precipitation, and temperature. How many of us have experienced all 4 seasons in the course of a week? Sorry if I stole one of your jokes, Ted. Ted's remarkably brief observations are full of details that others might miss altogether without his keen eyes and ears. Marvelous warmth and humor that comes through in his book. Ted's meditations on nature, as defined by the Damariscotta River estuary, compel one to drop everything and just go out to enjoy the remarkable beauty of nature in all its seasonal variety. This book is as delightful as Ted's gentlemanly manner and ready smile. Please welcome Ted Clapp.
I am surprised and delighted to see you. The first word I should make is a word of gratitude to this introducer. She has allowed us to come into this room and welcomed us. This is your local library providing for us to meet and share this event. Thank you.
My pleasure.
First, I'm just going to ask you if you would be willing to raise your hands in answer to 2 questions. The first is, how many of you live in Maine, full or part-time? That's a good beginning. The second is, how many of you can be called native Mainers?
I count 4.
Wonderful, thank you. This short book, which I will introduce, is composed of about 50 essays on, and this is the key point, the character of our twin towns, Damariscotta and Newcastle. Why, and I asked this question, why would I undertake an enterprise like this in my 90s to think that you're going to take the time and occasion and intelligence to enter this? It's a big question. Why would I do this? It is because this place, this time, and these people have for many years captured my attention, my appreciation, and admiration. This is an unusual place to be. The good life is in the atmosphere and actions of this place. Now, the structure of the book is built around the 4 seasons, as you just heard. Spring, refreshed in spring. Engaged in the summer, grateful in the fall, and cultured in the winter. These essays challenge the reader to pay better attention to nature's miracles, and some of these essays are meant to inspire us in our lives to live a more character-worthy life. Now, you're going to be encouraged to break in at any time you wish with a question or a comment. And here we go. I have decided to read briefly. It may seem a little longer than briefly, but here we go. What are the dimensions of your world? How far can you see? What sounds can you hear? Do you have a keen nose? Are your senses of taste or touch accurate? Or has your spirit grown jaded and cynical? Or can you still manage to have what is called a warm heart? Each of us has his or her personally unique world with its own dimensions. The first essay. It was 10 o'clock at night. We were sitting in the living room reading when a muffled hooting broke in on our silence. At intervals, the hooting came again and again. Who was he calling out there in the dark? We quietly opened the back door, stepped out onto the porch. Half a moon shone in the lower western sky. A few stars were strong enough to wink overhead. The cool breeze told us that we weren't going to stand out shivering in our sweaters very long. Listen. The rhythmic pattern hooting came again from the great dark pines at the river's edge. I waited, then, imitating his tone and his timing, I called back. Hoot, 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 hoot. Respectful silence from the pines. He waited before his probing, questioning call came again, this time from a closer tree. I couldn't see him, but he could see me even in that darkness. The pattern of his hooting told me who he was, a great horned owl, a large, handsome bird standing 2 feet tall. He and I enjoyed a 10-minute conversation. Call and response, before the cold wind drove us inside. I found myself actually sorry to leave him alone out in the night after such a pleasant meeting, though I'm sure he was much more at home out there than I. Perhaps he'll come again, some evening when the moon is low on the horizon in April. That's one aspect of the world we're living in, an aspect of this community and what's around it and in it. And this is what happens locally if we are alert with who is doing what. What a great day for a boat launching at the boat yard right within sight of our town's bridge. Saturday noon's brilliant summer sunshine flashed into our eyes from the sparkle on the salty high tide lapping the boatyard's water apron. We gathered at the yard in the open space surrounded by 3 buildings and storage sheds. You could tell something special was coming because the place was unusually tidied up. Loose boards were stacked in neat piles, paint buckets were capped and placed along the far fence, 2 small hulls were perched on their cradles out of the way. None of the usual sounds of sawing or machinery came from the sheds. But we felt the immediate excitement when we saw today's main attraction. There, front and center, sitting high on his wooden cradle in the iron rails of the ways, was the queen of the day. She seemed to capture us suddenly. What a sight! A stunning product of 5 years of loving labor. A gleaming 28-foot wooden-hulled sloop, primed, painted, polished, loomed above us proudly. Our eyes traveled from the heavy red keel up to the long, true, sweeping waterline drawn against the white hull. The brass-fashioned teak rail circled. The mast, raked in perfect proportion, like a beautiful woman, this vessel stood tall, exuding self-respect. It wasn't a large crowd, perhaps 50 in all, that walked around the Queen, whistling in admiration. Each of us knew the builder and skipper, one and the same person, whose ancestors had built many a large ocean-going sailing ship in this same yard for more than 200 years. I hope you've been down there at some time just to see where I'm describing. Emotion ran high as the builder neighbor made a short speech, he would never call it that, standing atop of planks stretched across 2 crates. He gave thanks for all the interest shown over these 5 years of building. He said it steadied his hand and his heart. Now that's what this community does. Very gently, a bottle, its neck scored, was broken over her bow with words of blessing. As if right on schedule, a surprising breeze snapped the beautiful signal flags awake high above us on the taut line stretched from stem to mast top to stern. We didn't see the man who fired off the small starter's cannon, but we jumped as we heard the bang, and at that signal, 4 men leaned into the shining hull and slowly rolled this queen of the day down the track. Gathering speed, the sloop touched the water stern first, then quickly her full weight followed with a whoosh into the river as the joyous boat bobbed and then settled into her new and native element. We all cheered, but it was different from most cheers. Yes, there was noise, but also a refinement, a somewhat choked salute to all fine craftsmen who had built for the sea. There she lay, this gem of the ocean, this bit of perfection, this finished product, ready for life. Well done, we said. We didn't want to leave. We all needed to savor this achievement, to indulge, to impress upon ourselves this moment of glory, especially on an intimate scale, right here, today, in front of our eyes in Maine. These are the kinds of things that we have in this community. Now, 37. Let's see. I like to go around the town and spot people that I think are visiting or for some reason set them apart from my appreciation of them. And so I come over and break into their silences like this. Are you from away? I interrupted a grandfatherly type who was browsing in the toy store. The quizzical look on his pleasant face and the 3 extra wrinkles on his brow told me he was. After a short pause, he asked, "What does that mean?" Then he brightened, "Oh, do you mean, do I live here?" As he patiently shifted on the other foot, he said, "No, I'm just waiting for my wife to find something for the grandchildren." Just then, Grandma came up. "What's all this?" she demanded defensively, seeing her husband accosted. "He just wants to know how we happen to be in Damariscotta. Says he writes a column for the local paper," Grandma said calmly. That's when they really warmed up to the subject, piling on their reasons for renting a cottage on Pemaquid Pond for 2 weeks. "You see," he said, "we're from Long Island, New York, and up here we have no TV, no telephone even, and our grandson says the loom sounds like a broken guitar string." A soft glaze came over Grandpa's face. "What do you do all day, all evening?" I asked, imagining the culture shock from a New York suburb to the loom's cry. Come. All right. Here we go. "We read," he said. I could feel the quiet satisfaction with which he said it. "We play cards, but mostly we sing together. Here on a Maine lake shore, singing as a family. What a great picture." A third person joined us. "This is our daughter," said Grandma, introducing a lovely, slim young mother of 3. "You know what I like about being here?" she joined in. "My kids can be gone from the cottage for half a day and I don't have to worry. There's a whole world to explore right here, and none of the dangers of the city. It's so rare, and we love it. This is our 3rd summer on the lake. We'll be back." And then on another occasion, I came upon 2 persons who I said to myself are the perfect visitors. "You're visiting Damariscotta?" I asked, little realizing that I had come upon the perfect visitors. We drive 18 hours from Patakasa, Ohio, to be here for 2 weeks on Bisbee Pond, said Mother, a 5th grade teacher. And when we get back to Ohio, the whole family, 4 children, start counting the 50 weeks until we come again next year. Then the third voice came in. You know, said this daughter, at family conference, my parents offered us kids a choice of vacation 1 week in Disney World in Florida or 2 weeks on Bisbee Pond. The score was 4-0 for Maine. Do the natives here realize what we've got? Our loon is less noisy this year, and we're worried. We row our boat pretty quietly. So this is what happens when you confront the outsiders and help them to be very welcome. All right, now. Just a moment. Yes. All right, this is what else can happen around here. It's noontime, 62 degrees with plenty of sunshine. A light May breeze combed through the newly greening grass. Oh, it's just too inviting to stay indoors. We put together a picnic, pulled on sweaters, roped the small rubber boat to the top of the car, and drove to a nearby pond. As we slid the boat into the water, the only sound came from passing kingfishers rattle. I hope you've heard those. A large red-shouldered hawk rode the thermals in majestic wheeling circles high against the long cloud line. All the lakeshore cottages in this pre-season were still shuttered tight. No movement caught the eye except the sparkling wavelets as we rode up lake into the wind. Finally, we found a small cove and an old mooring line trailing in the water. We tied on, made fast, hung there, the water rolling us with quiet little lapping sounds. Right in the middle of a bite of sandwich, a droning wail floated down toward us. What's that? We're alone. Is it the moaning breeze through the pines along the shore? But no birds groans like that. Wait. There's a tune mounting on top of the drone. It can't be bagpipes way out here. Very much like a fish that's been hooked. We were irresistibly drawn in toward the sound. Letting go the mooring line, breaking out the oars, we slowly worked along the shoreline, following the rising wail. There, just now in sight, striding out of the woods, came a man and his pipes and his dog, both in full concert. What a thrill at the echoes of Scotland the Brave and Over the Sea to Sky bounce hauntingly off the water all the way to the far shore and back. Closing our eyes, we imagined kilted troops in full dress parade or lassies with nimble dance steps between the sword blades. we were drawn closer and closer to this raucous, melodious sound. The tunes changed to remarkably and Amazing Grace. We floated in awe of the wonder of it all. Here, in what began as an almost empty place in the spring woods of Maine, even before the return of the loons, was the music of ancient pipes played with rare skill, skirls and all. Amazing Grace, indeed. We came alongside while he landed his two new listeners with the barren rocks of Aden. He was a pre-season early arrival who had lighted his cabin fire, then unlimbered his beloved pipes. The tune ceased with that awkward sigh of the pipes. We'd come upon a new friend. Like all good pipers, he had been playing since boyhood, his white hair now showing the years of achievement. As so often happens, it turned out that he lived and worked in the town in which we grew up, and he knew many of our old friends. We talked about the bagpipes I had bought in Scotland and never learned to play very well. We heard his tales of boyhood in Nova Scotia and the bandmaster who swept him into the mastery on the pipes. We conversed with his faithful dog, and on the bank, we were in the boat. It was time to say goodbye. The oars swung slowly. Our piper called across the widening stretch of water. "I'll pipe you away," he said, as he tuned the haunting melody, "Going Home." What a grand departure. The open lake began to envelop us. The white head and the slowly pumping elbow by the pipes on that receding shore saluted his fishing skill and our grateful friendship. We had been caught, hook, whine, and chanter. And there are some of the essays, and this will be the last, about people whose lives inspired me, and I hoped other people would be able to be inspired too. A couple in Leigh, however you'd like to sound that out for England, Leigh, England, were denied the right to adopt a child because of a too happy marriage. The authorities explained that because the couple had had few, if any, negative experiences when children themselves, and seemed to enjoy a marital relationship where vows and arguments were in good place, they would not be able to expose a child to enough negative experience in preparation for the hard world. Enough negative experiences. I do not know a person or a family for whom keeping steady and in balance amid waves or potential waves of worries and experiences is not a vital daily occupation. To live a life is to be surrounded with cares, which for some are dancing anxieties and for others continuing challenges to grace. What most of us need is instruction in harmonious survival. I have been greatly instructed in listening to the words of the author of the book Treasure Island and the poems in A Child's Garden of Verses. Robert Louis Stevenson battled weakness and debilitating sickness all his life. As a young child, and an only child of his parents, he was often alone with his nanny in Edinburgh. He seldom had the satisfactions of play with other boys. Though very bright, he did not achieve well in his formal schooling. He was a rebel and argued constantly with his conservative father. Many times in his life, he was moved to locations which were thought to be more beneficial to his health. In short, one could expect him to be disappointed and angry with his life. Stevenson believed, however, that there was no duty there is no duty we so much underrate as the duty of being happy. By being happy, he felt, we sow anonymous benefits upon the world which remain unknown even to ourselves, or when they are disclosed, surprise nobody so much as the benefactor. A happy man or woman, he said, is a better thing to find than a 5-pound note, for he or she is a radiating focus of goodwill, whose entrance into a room is as though another candle had been lighted. As an adult, he wrote a friend, I meant when I was a young man to write a great poem, and now I am cobbing little prose articles and in excellent spirits. I thank you. So too I meant to lead a life that should keep mounting from the first, and though I have been repeatedly down again below sea level and am scarce higher than when I started, I am as keen as ever for this enterprise. Our business in this world is not to succeed, but to continue to not fail in good spirits. I am keen on this enterprise. Once as a young man, his canoe capsized on the Oise River near his home. Managing to cling to his paddle with one hand, he caught an overhanging branch with the other and thus saved his life. He said he wanted this phrase carved on his tombstone. He clung to his paddle because it symbolized for him a life that strove not for success, but for a happy, hopeful, helpful self-expression. He clung to his paddle. He never gave up. He worked at being a cheerful person. And that's the end of this part of the program. Anybody want to make any kind of comment about this community? This is why I finally decided to do something like this, because this is what this community does have. And do we appreciate that enough? Let's add to these qualities that I hope we all admire. Anything else on your minds that you would say, yes, I agree?
I agree.
Yes.
I like that you can't open the Lincoln County News in any given week without someone having written an eloquent letter of appreciation to the whole community for being so supportive, whether it's because they've had a fire or, you know, a personal loss or a child who's ill or anything. I mean, people really come together and support one another, and that has not been true to anywhere near the same extent in any other place I've lived in my life.
Thank you. I agree with that. It's amazing, delightful. And here we are. So I say thank you, and that's it. Anybody else want to say a word about this?
What's next? What's the next book?
I think you're next, if you will. Just say, here are some books. It will be delight to me if nobody buys a book. I'm not here to sell books, believe me. Yes?
Ted, I'm grateful for your poetry that you used to write after every Christmas visit to our home.
Thank you. All right, I think we are, yes.
One word, Ted, contrast. I think we lose sight of the importance of contrast in our lives between nature, between associations with each other, place, and those of us who live here are blessed because we have all of those things.
Very yes.
Good.
Yes.
I appreciate the poetry of your writing. You write as a poet.
Thank you.
Maybe you'll publish a book of your poems next.
Yes.
I appreciate the fact of your perennial sunshine that you spread throughout the town as you go about town, and that you know something about each one of us, and you always ask about it, and it means a great deal and contributes so much to the overall of our community.
Here, here.
Thank you. And that's
Here, here.
spoken by a And that's spoken by a former president of the local Rotary.
Remember that. It's been many years.
Very good. And we haven't been held a long time.